Well, Kusul, Upsalarko. Greetings, welcome. My name is Neil Silcox. It's my great pleasure to welcome you to Goofball Pedagogy, authentic teaching for authentic learning. This is part of our Welcome to My Classroom sessions. Welcome to My Classroom is part of what we do in Better Together, and it came out of something called Welcome to My Online Classroom, which was a way in the early days of the pandemic to say, here's what I'm doing to try to adapt to online teaching. And now that we're in a brave new world where all things are possible, we've discovered that we really missed and we really appreciated just hearing the way that teachers were talking about their teaching. A lot of times in these sessions, people come in to talk about the things that they're big experts in terms of their research. But in this case, we invite people in who are experts in their own teaching. And so I'm really excited to welcome in a moment Dr. Courtney Plante. We got to Courtney because in asking around, I heard terrific reviews from students and from peers about the work that Courtney does in his classroom. And I just want to offer, before I introduce Courtney, a couple of disclaimers. I came up with this snazzy title after a discussion with Courtney, Goofball Pedagogy, authentic teaching for authentic learning. And I just want to say two things because I feel like I might have written a check on behalf of Courtney. The first is that authentic teaching, I don't want to imply by any means that anyone is doing inauthentic teaching. And I think we all exist on a scale. And 100% honesty is certainly not right. And I'm interested in learning how and when to be more authentic. And I also want to say that authentic learning with a capital A and a capital L is a real thing. There's a whole set of scholarship around this idea of authentic learning. And that is not necessarily something that Courtney has proclaimed to be an expert on. And so we're not necessarily talking about that, though it might come up in the conversation. So without any further ado, I'm really pleased to welcome Dr. Courtney Plante. Courtney.
So I'm not really a cat, although I may sort of look like one. In a talk about authentic teaching, I thought it'd be kind of funny to come out here wearing a mask. In this case, this is Nuka. He's a blue cat. And yeah, it's funny how wearing a mask like that, wearing a fursuit head like that, can actually be more authentic sometimes than how many of us present ourselves. We often go up and teach in front of a class with all these expectations that I need to be a professional, I need to put out a particular image, my students have an expectation for professionalism, and so we feel this need to look a certain way or present a certain facade, and oftentimes in doing so, we lose something, right? We lose something, we depersonalize ourselves, we lose some kind of personal connection to students, and I think that's often to our detriment and to their detriment. And that's sort of one of the things I guess I'm talking about today is how to be authentic in the classroom. And so thank you very much for the intro, Neil. Yeah, it's kind of hard to figure out where to start with this. My background isn't necessarily in being authentic. Like I don't teach or do research in that subject necessarily. But what I do study is fan cultures and the idea, the importance of being able to be yourself, having space to be yourself, and how important that is for our well-being and for our sense of thriving and growing. And I think the classroom is just an important place to do that as anywhere else. And so one of the things that's been really important to me since my start of teaching a few years ago has been to be as authentically myself as possible in the class, and to encourage students to do the same, right? To foster that sense of connection with students, because one of the things, if nothing else, that I've learned about, studying or just getting to know folks of the new generation, the Zoomer generation, is that they've got a nose for bullshit. They can smell it from a mile away. They're distrustful of authority figures. They're distrustful of corporations. They're distrustful of anyone they feel is trying to sell them something. And you can't be inauthentic with them and expect them to trust you. And if you're trying to be a trusted source of knowledge to them, I think it behooves us to come across as authentic and to be authentic, not just look authentic, but to feel authentic. And so let's see if I can figure out my screen sharing here. There we go. So one of the things I do in my classroom right out of the gates is, this is my first lecture, welcome to the lecture thing. And within a couple of slides of starting the course, I'm already introducing them to myself, my weird, wacky, goofy self. So I wear silly t-shirts to class. I will fill my slides with memes and jokes. I make no secret about the fact that I'm kind of a clown, right? So right out of the gate, I'm telling my students, hey, here are some of my hobbies. Here are the sorts of memes and jokes that I like. This is some of the things that you'll hear me talk about or hear me rail against. And to some extent, you feel like a little bit of a narcissist doing it, right? Like this is the me show, and you're all coming here to see me. But it does have the benefit of allowing students to sort of know up front what to expect and to remind them that, hey, I'm a person up here too. I'm a person with hobbies. I'm a person with interests and things that rub me the wrong way and the right way. And I think in doing so, it allows students to not only forge a sense of personal connection with you, which is really important, again, at a time where the media that students are consuming is geared towards fostering that personal connection, things like watching Twitch streamers and getting to know people in the media they consume. There's this sort of expectation that we should get to know the people that we're going to be watching a lot. And so I like to foster that connection right out of the gate and then follow through on it. I think nothing's worse than starting off with this attempts to forge a connection and then immediately backing off from it and never talking about it again, right? So if I say, hey, I really like cats, then there's an expectation that they're going to see cat related stuff. Like it's going to see it through in my slides. They're going to see it in the examples I use. Yeah, and it fosters this sense of connection with students. I feel like I'm, normally I'm 6'2". I'm a big, bald, scary looking guy, especially if you put me in a mafia suit, right? I'm a big, scary looking guy, and that can be intimidating to students. But if I'm, it's Dr. Plante, he's the goofball who likes cats and science fiction stuff, and he's the board game nerd, I'm a lot more approachable in that regard. And it makes me less scary. It makes students feel more comfortable approaching me. And I think there's a little bit of fear on a lot of profs' part about really letting that show. Like, I imagine most people listening to this have some kind of thing they're nerdy about, some kind of quirk. Maybe you're really, really into gardening. Maybe you're really into board games. Maybe you really like black and white film. Like some little thing that you may be a little afraid to share because it's going to make you look kind of dorky. And I think that fear of looking dorky and somehow undermining our authority in the classroom is something that creates a little bit of trepidation. But I can promise you that if I can walk out in front of my classroom, wearing this, and I do it every semester, I'll pick one lecture where I walk out wearing this. Just to sort of make a point, if I can do that, I promise you, your ego will survive. Letting folks know that you've got a really weird interest in a particular genre of movie, or you really like Lord of the Rings, or you like to dress up as a clown on Halloween or something like that, right? So letting that show, I think, is it makes you resonate with students more. It makes them appreciate the class more. It can create a little bit of concern about not looking professional. I know that, especially with some demographics in particular, there's a need to sort of overcome the concern about not seeming very professional. And I think it's a matter of balancing it, right? You don't want to overshare. You don't want to completely undermine any credibility. So I don't claim to have a monopoly on the knowledge of when is the right time to share, how much is the right amount to share. But I guess I want you to think about ways to inject authenticity into your teaching, right? So right out of the gate, letting people know a little bit about yourself. Once you start teaching, right, just finding little ways to imbue quirkiness and personality into your lectures. So for me, a thing I do is I wear t-shirts, right? So I've got, I'm in anticipation of the 2 classes I'm teaching immediately after this. I've got 2 different t-shirts on from my collection reflecting the lectures that day, right? It's a silly little thing, but I collect t-shirts. I'm a psychologist. I collect nerdy psychologist related t-shirts, and students love it, right? It's a stupid little thing. It's a dorky little thing, but it gives you character, and it resonates with students. Students appreciate the fact that this is just something that makes you a little bit more human in a world that's very commercialized, very commodified. It feels authentic, and they appreciate it. They're more willing to listen and to pay attention to someone who doesn't come across like a faceless drone representing a corporation. And so even in my lectures, this is just a random lecture I grabbed here. And within a few slides of starting the lecture, already I'm imbuing it with things from shows I like, with memes and jokes, things I find online. And you know, they're hit and miss. So some jokes will only resonate with 10% of the class. But if you're part of that 10%, you know, and I hit some niche little joke and you're like, oh man, like, I can't believe he understood that, or I can't believe he knows that reference. It hits with them, right? It resonates with them. And you can still teach around these sorts of things, like these little moments of, oh, I get that. He's making a reference that I get, resonates with students, and it helps them sort of stay invested in whatever it is you're teaching. And it, you know, obviously you can have serious content as well. But it's a matter of just sort of finding a balance of imbuing your personality in your slides, whether it's, you know, putting little, I used to put My Little Pony backgrounds in my slides because I was really big into the show and I studied My Little Pony. So everything from that to, you know, choose a wacky font if you've got a favorite font. If you're a diehard Comic Sans enthusiast, let it fly in your lectures. At least they'll be memorable, right? At least students will remember something about it. And even if they jokingly laugh about how you're the prof with horrible taste for fonts, that still gives you personality. I remember one of my favorite teachers or professors when I was in university was this older math professor. And he was, you know, stuffy and old, but my God, did the man love math puns, like the dumbest math puns. But that's what everyone remembered about the class, right? It was a hard class. It was a frustrating class. But, you know, every time he got a groaner in there, every time he worked in, oh, this is too close to call, we'd all groan, and that gave him personality. And you could see when you looked at that reviews for this fellow on Rate My Professors, that's what students talked about. That's what they remembered, is that this was a person, this was an authentic person, and that authenticity made the class more enjoyable because at least it was a person teaching them, right? In an era where we're competing with ebooks and YouTube lessons and people teaching things online, it's that human connection that really, in some ways, makes the classroom different and stand out from, you know, just taking a course online. So that's sort of one big push, one sort of big, the 2 main thrusts I'm making towards emphasizing authenticity in the classroom. The other thing is giving students themselves an opportunity to be authentic as well in the way they express knowledge and have creativity and flair when it comes to turning in assignments and demonstrating knowledge in your class. So I've got here my syllabus, which itself, you'll notice, is very full of memes and jokes as well. People often, I guess a little side push here, people often undervalue the importance of a syllabus, and you should never do this because your syllabus is your first impression. This is your students' first look at your class. And so make it an accurate one, right? If you are kind of a clown, if you are kind of a goof, you know, let them know from the first moment they see your class, they download your syllabus before they even step foot in your class. That's your first impression. And if it's some boilerplate copy and pasted material from the university and nothing more, that's not going to leave them with a particularly inspired view of your class. But if you're putting jokes in there, if you're you know, jazzing it up with things that are relevant and important to you, they're going to have a feeling going in as to what this course is all about and what you're all about. And also because, you know, like my syllabus is 12 pages long, we tell students you need to read the syllabus, but we give them no reason to want to read the syllabus. If it's just a wall of text, I mean, it's like reading a user agreement. You know, you're supposed to read it before you agree, but no one does it. But, you know, jazz it up with a few memes and you'd be surprised how many students are willing to read through a 12-page syllabus just because it's funny and interesting to read. But I digress. What I wanted to emphasize was this page in my syllabus right here. In particular, this little part right here. Oops. So one of the things that's really important to me when it comes to authenticity is giving students an opportunity to play to their strengths, to be as authentic as possible in how they demonstrate their knowledge. And so one of the ways I run my courses is to allow as much as possible students to have choice and to have sort of volition in the way they're graded and the way they craft and create their I guess assignments in the course, right? So you have your traditional for students who are kind of old fashioned and like the just give me 2 midterms and let's be done with it. That's totally an option. 60% of my course is totally optional and you get to choose how you fill that 60%. And so if you want to just do 2 midterms or 30% each, that's fine. Do that and you're done. But for the rest of it, there's options for like term papers. Hey, if writing is something you're passionate about, something you're good at, and something that you love to do, and this is your preferred way to demonstrate knowledge, then hey, turn in a term paper for 30% of your grade. Or hey, weekly reflections, right? If you, you know, one of the things we try to encourage students to do is to reflect on the stuff they've learned outside the classroom. And so I tell students, hey, if you have a shower thought, you go home and you're sitting there in the shower and you go, oh, I didn't even realize this is totally connected to my psychology or my sociology course, or wow, I just realized that what we learned today in class is going to totally help me understand my relationship with my boyfriend better, right? Tell me about it, right? Reflect on it. Let me see that and reinforce that by you know, giving marks for the things we want them to do. Practice question database. If one of the ways you like to study is by making practice questions for yourself, if that feels sort of in line with the way you like to learn, then let's try to find a way to reward you for that. One of my favorite ways to capitalize on this creativity, this flair, this authenticity is these bottom 2 right here, an infographic and a teach a topic presentation. With the infographic, it's super open. It's like take some study or some concept from this course and make it the sort of thing you'd find online, right? So jazz it up, add pictures, add creativity, make it flashy, right? Make it interesting for a person to look at. And I've been continuously astounded at the level of creativity students bring to the table when it comes to taking something very drab and boring and making it interesting, right? And compelling for someone to read. Even more interesting, the teach a topic presentation ranges considerably in how students want to tackle it. Everything from your traditional come up to the front of the class and give a presentation to, hey, make an Instagram video, right? You got Instagram and you like to, or make a TikTok video rather, right? Make a TikTok video, or if you want to do something on Instagram, a series of Instagram photos. Teach a topic in a way that's compelling and interesting to you, right? So make it jive with the things you're already doing. If you like to edit things on Wikipedia, maybe teach that way. Maybe show me the pattern of changes you've made to Wikipedia and explain, you know, oh, I changed this article to reflect this and this and this and this, right? And walk me through the process of that. So when students feel like they have this opportunity to express things that are important to them, right? Even if it's a term paper, getting to write a term paper topic on something that's important to them, rather than just assigning them the topic, all the way down to letting them use their social media to show that they've learned something in this class. I think it gives them more investment in the topic. So now they're more invested because they have a prof that they actually care about or are interested in and who feels like a person, but they themselves get to express that part of themselves as well. And self-expression is a huge part of the new generation, right? Having ways of expressing yourself and being able to be yourself. And so I guess that's my push, that's my pitch. And again, I don't claim to be any sort of expert on this matter. This is just something that I've been trying now for the last few years in various ways, and it's been working for me. But I'm kind of curious to turn it over to the room, or to hear questions or suggestions, or hear things that you might be doing that really jive with this idea, right? Of either presenting yourself authentically in kind of a goofy or wacky way, or in a way that's authentic to you, and also ways to help students bring that authenticity into the classroom too. So you're having a real bit of human interaction in a world that's increasingly more digital and distant. So cool, I guess this would be the time to throw it to the room, Neil.
Absolutely. And I'm going to stop your screen sharing if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Oh, I love so much about this, Courtney, and I don't want to take up too much of the time, but I do want to start to say, for those of you in our audience this morning, this early morning, but do you have any big questions that are coming to you that you'd like to ask Courtney? Or would you like to share something of your own experience of bringing your authentic self to class? Or are there many students here, perhaps a student experience of having a teacher who helped you feel you could bring yourself more fully to your classroom? We'll wait a moment. You could put something in the chat, you could raise your hand virtually, or you could just turn your camera on and I'll call on you. Perhaps while we're waiting, I'll start, which is, my first question was, I wondered for you, Courtney, in your journey you know what, I see Kath Morley has a question. Kath, would you care to unmute and turn your camera on?
Hi. Hi. Oh my gosh, look at me. I'm in a sunbeam and you can't really even see me. Oh, good Lord.
It's beautiful.
It's so artistic. Yeah, the light's beaming in and it looks great.
Oh my God. Oh dear, I don't know what to do. I'll just, there, that was kind of okay. Courtney, thanks for your presentation. Oh, I'm like on the dark side of the moon. Oh my goodness. There we go. Anyway, here in beautiful Hantsport, Nova Scotia. I really loved what you talked about. I loved it. And I wanted to echo, come to the dark side. I wanted to echo your thoughts about choose your own adventure kind of style to learning. And every class, I teach in the School of Nutrition and Dietetics at Acadia. And, and our students are going to work with humans. Most often, you don't want to connect with a dietitian because you're having a fabulous day. That's not how it works, right? So I'm really, I require them to have a term and showcase about what have you been working on all term, and it makes them talk about their work, which they're very shy about, right? So I always say for that, it can be anything but a PowerPoint, because we're so bored, right? We're overdone with them. And so what you just said about being I'm blown away by their creativity. Like the shyest people in the course put on a play, right? Like, here are the 4 emotions associated with having incredible food allergies that you just can't control, right? And of anger and fear and grief about the way I used to eat and all these things, right? And, and they perform this incredible play in a, our classrooms are not designed to be theater spaces, right? So their creativity was incredible and they surprised themselves. So I just really wanted to say, I'm with you here, buddy. And also I wanted to mention that what I do in terms of my authentic self, I'm, I think sometimes, I certainly did as a student, think that professors leave charmed lives and we have nothing going on outside of, showing up 3 hours a week to teach them. So I make it really clear. I'm a single parent. I was a single parent when I did my PhD and my kids were homeschooling. Like, I know what it's like to be, stressed. And I come from a working class family. I don't come from a group of credentialed people. And yeah, I know what that's like. I know how hard that is. So, in terms of, Yeah, I didn't just show up one day with a PhD and 40 years of experience. Like, it's hard slogging for all of us. And so, you know, and the other thing I do that I kind of love is we always hear about, you know, students will often say, well, when I'm in the real world, and I go, so how is it that this isn't real?
Mm.
I mean, you're here working super hard to get a degree. Surely that's real. And you know, and so they go, yeah, well, this is really hard. This is really hard, this going to university thing, right? It's painted with, oh gosh, you just have to have parties all the time and it's so fun. But anyway, to acknowledge how hard it is for them, that's something I work on a lot too. So thanks for this. This is really delightful. Thanks.
Thank you, Kath.
Thank you. I also want to mention real quick, just what was on my mind. I'm surprised at how many profs are scared to show the background in their house. If it's your bedroom, fine, you know. But I'm like, you imbue your house with your personality, right? So when I teach my you know, when I record lectures, this is what my background is. This is my home office, right? And I think there's so much personality that gets expressed just in like seeing that, hey, we have homes that, hey, sometimes they're messy, sometimes we're, you know, that's just part of who we are. So I say embrace it, and you know, hey, what can you learn about a person by looking at their home? I just wanted to mention that because I in the background, oh, what can you learn about a person just by looking at what's behind them in their house? So
Yeah, that's a great point. I see you, Donna. We've got a question from Andrew Nurse. Then we're going to go to Tony. But I just wanted to say, you know, one of the things that I really thought was beautiful during the pandemic was that we had to see our students as whole people, and they had to see us as whole people, because, you know, our partners are walking through and the cat was there, and I heard their roommates having fights and things, and it really made for a richer learning and teaching experience. And I hope that there are ways that we can bring that out of the pandemic. And part of what interests me about you, Courtney, is that I see this as part of that direction. Donna, you're next.
Sorry, I'm just unmuting. Thank you.
No problem.
Courtney, I really enjoyed your presentation. So much of what you said resonated with me. I love the idea of not being the authority at the front of the classroom. I think students respond better if you acknowledge that you don't know everything, right? from the get-go. One of the things I'm struggling with, because I think I'm probably a little bit older than you, is that my references don't always hit the way they used to anymore. So I'm trying to, and I've had a discussion with a colleague of mine who's also a medievalist in English, and he's finding the same thing. And so one of the things we're struggling with is how to deal with that as we kind of age out of references that might mean something to our students. And I just wondered if you had any thoughts on that.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. So there's two thoughts I have on it. The first is, you know, social media is a really good way to sort of keep in touch, right? So follow people on social media, you know, if you also encouraging students to help you out. Like I have no shame in saying, hey, if you know, looking ahead, if you find some really fire memes, some great memes that, like, you know, are really relevant to y'all, send them my way. Half of the really good jokes and stuff in my slides come from students who are like, oh, Dr. Plante, I found this thing online and it's totally relevant to your lecture on conformity. So don't be afraid to ask students. They love being able to contribute to what they see on screen. Like, oh, that's my joke right there. But secondly, lean into it, embrace it. There's nothing more charming, I think, than a professor who's authentically and shamelessly embracing something that is a little bit dated. For me, it's Simpsons references. I will shamelessly put in Simpsons references from 25 years ago, and I'll be like, hey, this joke is funny to me and like 2 people in this class, and I don't care, because to those 2 people, it's hysterical. And if you just lean into it and you embrace it and you're shameless about it, students can appreciate someone who likes the thing and won't apologize for it. So I say, go with it. It gives you quirkiness, it gives you personality, and that's a thing they'll remember. At least it feels authentic.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you so much.
And Juan Carlos offers in the chat that he runs his jokes references by his kids to see if they still work. So if you have young people in your lives, you can do that as well. Tony, oh no, I had a question from Andrew in the chat. And this was direct message to me, so if you don't see it in the chat, that's why, so I'll read it out. How do you address students who might have problems showing their authentic self, say shyness, or students struggling with intergenerational trauma? I think it's a great question. Thank you so much, Andrew. Courtney?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I like the question. I think a big important part of this is nothing is forced in this. So if you notice in my syllabus, for example, no one's forced to teach a topic. No one is forced to do a reflection. No one is forced to do an overly revealing term paper or anything like that. Very mindful of the fact that some people are shy, some people are introverted. For some people, they want to come into class, sit in the back, be quiet, write their 2 midterms and be done with it. And that's fine. I never want to push a person to feel like they have to express. It's creating a very welcome space for them, knowing that choosing not to, not wanting to participate or not wanting to reveal parts of yourself is a choice that they have, that they are free to express. So I think, not everyone is going to want to express or feel as open to expressing as perhaps I do. And that's okay too. The worst thing you could do, I think, would be to force them or strong arm them into feeling like they have to express something or share something. A simple little thing that I like to do as well sometimes, name tags, right? So I'll go back to grade 1 and I'll bust out the construction paper on day 1 and I'll say, hey, just make yourself a name tag, right? Just so I can call you by your name as we're talking and get to learn your names. And some people, they'll just write their name in black ink and that's it for the semester. And other people will make shapes and put flowers on it. And it's this entire artistic expression, right? And for some folks, that's enough, right? Just being able to put some flowers or do something goofy with their nameplate is enough. And for others, they, just write their name and that's it. So not pressuring them into feeling like they have to is important, but letting them feel like, hey, at any time, if you want to jump in, by all means.
That's wonderful, Courtney, and so thoughtful of you to honor all the ways that students might want to share, from the very big to the very small. Tony, I see your hand next, and then we'll go to Matthew and then to Jeffrey.
Sure. Just responding in part to Donna. I have a student that I mentor through a program who's a mature student, early 30s, and has said that, and has worked as a laborer and has had a pretty tough life, and said that university is the most intense and most stressful thing they've ever done. So it's real, is what I'm getting at. It's real life, maybe even amplified. One of the things that I do, and Courtney, you're making me think of other things to do, like jazz up, shall I say, my course outlines, because they're not very funny, not at all. And in fact, I apologize for them being so dry all the time. And it's like, yeah, why haven't I thought of doing something like this before? Because I think I'm a pretty funny guy. But one of the things I do in introducing, especially face-to-face, is I give the students a funny little, it's personal, but I say, I was born in the front seat of an AMC Rambler on the side of the highway, right? It's a personal thing. That's what happened. I even joke and say, that's why my head's so big, because I fell on the floor in my head. I like those kinds of things. But even on a personal level, when we shifted pretty much entirely online, a year and a half ago, and I've been teaching online for a while, but I thought, how do I make this more personal? So I decided to do a house tour. So I got my phone out, I started at the front door. I showed them my purple door and it is purple, I'm not even joking. And then went all through the house, showed them the art on the wall, showed them my deck, explained even why I bought this house. So it's personal, but it's not invasive or intrusive. I'm not telling them things that, are inappropriate. So yeah, I want to do more of that. And Courtney, thank you very much. It's made me think more and more about being more sharing and getting that also from students when they feel comfortable doing it. So thank you very much.
I love the idea of the house tour. That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's terrific. Thank you, Tony. Matthew, you had a question, I believe. Would you care to ask it?
I'm gonna have to skip because I've been so invested in listening to all these questions that I've lost it. So I'll put
No
my hand up
problem.
if it comes back.
Well, you let me know if it comes back and we'll get to you. Jeffrey, and then Juan Carlos.
I was just going to mention something I tried. I actually tried this. I've done it before, but I had a tutorial pub night actually in February 2020, and the students loved it. You know, it wasn't a big thing. We went early. I bought a pitcher of beer for everybody. Not for everybody. I bought a couple pitchers of beer for the students. I worked with the student pub. They got me a flip chart, and I gave out questions, and we just did it. And the students really liked it because everybody got to know each other on a little bit better level. I was going to continue, and then COVID hit, of course. Never did it again. In terms of some other things I do, I once made a Fonzie reference, realized nobody knows who Fonzie is anymore. I didn't even bother explaining it. The other thing I often do, I have pictures of my cats all over the place. People think I'm cat crazy. I'm not. I'm animal crazy. We don't have a lifestyle that supports having dogs as pets, so we have cats. But that's another thing that the students get to know you. I think it's really important for them to get to know you. And I'm always amazed at how surprised they are to find out when they do find out you have a sense of humor. Or that you know, I talked about my baseball team was in the World Series one year. I was really excited. And in my comments that year, people said, who would have thought a prof would like the Tigers? So all of those things I think are helpful. Doesn't matter what it is, but they get to know you.
I say lean into that Fonzie reference. Like if it had been me and I make the Fonzie reference and the class goes flat, that's when I go on. I'm like, okay, 30-second detour. We're going on YouTube and I'm showing you the font. And it's ridiculous and over the top and silly, but students can. It's that there's such a thing as the joke that's flat, and then you run it into the ground so much that it becomes funny again and how dry it is. And so, also I like that you have the cat just off camera. It was always funny to me when teaching online, we, profs would get embarrassed and say, oh God, my cat's here, I'm so sorry. But every student, that's the most engaged they've been the entire class is when the cat walks across the back of the screen.
So because of this year, everybody at Acadia knows who Maggie is, and people from Bishops also know Maggie. Unfortunately, they may know Maggie too much.
I love that, and I think one of the things that I think is valuable from what Jeffrey is saying and touches on what the question that Donna asked is about, is that you don't have to find the cool thing. Students will really sniff that out, that you're trying to be like, hello, fellow kids.
Trying to trend chase, yeah.
Yeah, but it is about being honest about what you're passionate about. And a great colleague of mine, Dr. Glenn Nichols at Mount Allison, he's passionate about gardening and he has bees. And all of the students know about his gardening and bees, and they always ask him. None of those kids really, they're not into that necessarily, but they get interested because he's so passionate. Juan Carlos, I see your hand, and then I've got something from Eli in the chat, and then we'll go to Andrew Nurse.
So thank you for the talk. That was awesome. I'm trying to get my video to work, but it's not working. Let me see.
There you are.
Okay. So I think one of I really like the idea of the syllabus, giving them option. Myself, because I work with first-year students, so I'm really concerned about them coming back and saying, well, is this fair? How are you going to assess? So I will say the only thing is that make sure that you have very specific rules on how it's going to be graded and so on and so forth. But I'm all for it. I think it's great for the students. Because I work with first years and I have a bunch of sections, I work with a bunch of TAs. And I try, I have and I provide the slides and all the materials, but they teach the class, right? So they do the pre-lab, the TAs themselves. So one thing I do tell them, is like, please, show as much of yourself as you want. And I always pitch it in the way that, just tell them why you're here. You're a grad student or you are a fourth year student. There are different tiers of TA. So, just tell them how you ended up here. But, if you feel comfortable, and this is one thing I tell them, if you feel comfortable, do tell them, other things about yourself, because that humanizes you. But I've had TAs, I have TAs that have come dressed up, for Halloween and and that's, they just do it. And I've had others that, even that dress up in the sense that they are very serious. So outside of that life, they are regular students. And then when they come to teach, they dress up, and that's, again, their choice. I remember one of them is because she looked really young. So she said, I cannot, not dress up because I'm gonna look younger than them. But at the same time, it's like, you have a motorbike, you work with turtles, do you have an idea of how much material you've got there? It's like, do you have a clue of what you can do for these students? But she would never share that, and that was her, she didn't feel comfortable. Now, myself, I've always worked hard at keeping, because I have an accent, because a bunch of reasons that I don't need to get into, I tried to keep it professional, and it was very liberating when I realized, well, this is part of who I am, right? And students, and I remember one of the TAs once asked me, how do you pronounce meiosis? It's like, whichever way I want. And she looked at me and I said, I have an accent. Your name is Megan. And if I call you Megan, you are not going to correct me on it. So you know what? I just pronounce it whatever way I want, and I have, and I usually make jokes about the way I talk, right? But I know that that's not for everyone, right? And I think one of the big points here is that, to realize that whatever you do, you have to be comfortable doing it, right? But I do fully agree, bring your whole self. I think they will remember you.
I really like that point that you made too. And I think one of the things people forget is that it can be so simple. Like if you are a suit and tie kind of person, a silly tie, having a different silly tie every day, or just like a quirky tie or something like that, that can be enough. Like students are noticing your ties every day. That can be enough to give you that unique little, it doesn't have to be something big and grandiose, just something that makes you seem human.
Yeah, I thank you so much, Juan Carlos, for that. And it makes me think about, the challenge that I think about, and I know many people are thinking about, is this idea that we need to decolonize. We need our practice. We need to indigenize our practice. And a part of that, two things that you are doing, Courtney, that I really appreciate are you are breaking down the idea that professionalism and authority looks and sounds one way. And then you're also, one size fits all is a very colonialist attitude. And you're really building in the way that you've built your syllabus, which I find really inspiring, that one size fits one practice, which I think is something we should be aiming for. Andrew, I see your hand next, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I don't know. Just thinking about, actually, that's what I wanted to do, purely that, but I did have a question. And one of the things we started to do on the advice of Tony and some other people at Nade was sort of a pre-class survey of students. Do you do that? And even if not, how would you integrate it into this kind of approach?
So yes, actually, on the on the first day of class, or before the first day of class, even if they have access to the course website, I'll do a pre-class survey. Well, I'll get a little bit of important information about them. So what year are you in? What topics are you interested in? What are you nervous about? What are you excited about? But then I always put a section at the end, like, tell me about yourself. Right? What are some of the hobbies you have? What are some of the quirky things? What's like some of the interesting stuff about you? And I'll try to find ways to work that sort of thing into my course. Like one of the big things I do is I make a giant list of like things that people are fans of. and I'll look it up and oh, this person's a Game of Thrones fan. So I'll find some reference to, and I'll throw it in one slide. I'm like, this is just for that one person, right? Like they're going to get this one slide, or some really obscure anime. So at some point in the semester, there'll be one joke in there or one reference just for that person, right? Like, oh man, like he, and just to help make it feel a little bit more like their authenticity is sort of recognized. And I'll throw a reference to it on the exam. I love watching in the exam because all of my questions have some kind of reference worked into them. So I like to watch in the exam and watch students get a reference and look up to me, you made a joke here and I understand that joke. So I like to integrate the survey that way, right out of the gate, find out what interests my students, what quirks or hobbies can I throw into references here and there to make it more relevant to them.
I love that. I love that thinking. We've got a great quotation that was shared by Eli, who I'm pretty sure is a student. And it's by Marianne Williamson. And so I thought I'd share it. Thank you, Eli, for putting this in the chat. As we let our light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence actually liberates others. That's really, really apt. Thank you so much for sharing. And if there are any students who have thoughts or questions or an experience of having yourself be allowed or be disallowed in a class, we'd love to hear it. I have a question for you, Courtney, which comes a little bit from the joke that Andrew made with his bottle of scotch, Crystal Linda, I'll get to you in just a second. But Courtney,
Actually, that was rye whiskey.
Oh, pardon me.
Yeah.
What a monster.
World of difference.
And I think the question is that there is certainly boundaries where it's oversharing, where there are things we shouldn't be talking about with students, or when students bring too much to class. And I wonder if there are ways that you work to find those boundaries and to navigate them with yourself or with students as they come up, Courtney.
Yeah, so there's never going to be a hard and fast, here's what's acceptable, here's what's not. It's going to be a line in the sand for every single person. And you're going to find those trade-offs as you go along. So occasionally, I teach a psychology of sex class. So if you want to talk about oversharing, that's a class where if you're not careful, you wind up with students like, oh, let me explain my favorite sexual position. I'm like, I wish you wouldn't. So it is a matter of trying to find this delicate balance of, okay, how much do you share? How much do you feel comfortable sharing? Realizing that there's going to be this reciprocal disclosure, right? Whatever sort of level you find yourself comfortable sharing, expect students, okay, would you feel okay with students sharing that much information and probably a little bit more? Because, if we're talking about students who are, younger than 25, prefrontal cortex is not fully developed, critical thinking isn't entirely fully developed. They might take it one step further. And so sort of try to calibrate that line and be flexible and sort of realize that it is something that you may have to adjust from semester to semester based on the feedback. And, students are getting probably to be a little bit too comfortable with I wanting to know about my personal life. So maybe we'll back off a little bit on that. But yeah, it's something you have to negotiate and just be mindful that it'll probably change over time and need to be adjusted and finessed. But you work at it. It's a moving target.
I love that. I love that. There's nothing is set it and forget it, I think, in teaching, and that thoughtfulness and that idea of modeling with a little bit of buffer. So you can catch it before it goes over the edge, perhaps. Crystal Linda, would you care to ask a question or share anything?
Hello. Yeah, I'm replying to your earlier question about maybe some student perspectives on faculty authenticity. So from a student perspective, I know that sometimes professors worry about, what can I do to make that connection and engagement with the class? But some things I have noticed are really just like the small things. So one professor that I know, at the beginning of class, she has us all write on whiteboards our names. And so already it's 3 weeks later, and she knows almost all of our names. So when we ask a question in class, she can just respond with their names. And this is a really important thing I find, especially when transitioning from the online environment, when it was easy to do that, but now taking the time to get to know each person and the face behind that, I thought was really special. And another thing is just like another professor has a pet bird, and so during class she lets the pet bird out of the cage. So as she's talking, then it's running around on her shoulders and things. So yeah, everyone remembers that, and we all think that that's great.
Oh, that's terrific. Thank you,
That's-
Crystalenda.
I love it. And that's one of the reasons why I encourage, if you're looking for a really easy way to do this from day one, bring in, and go back to grade one, bring in that construction paper, bring in a bunch of, smelly markers, the ones that smell like things, and say, hey guys, first 5 minutes of class, just make a name tag. Just go to town with it. Put your pronouns on there, put your name on there, whatever nickname you want, decorate it, jazz it up, do whatever you want. And it helps the prof get to know the students' names, but also it allows them that little bit of self-expression. And I do it myself. I'll put my name tag on there and I'll draw little cat ears on it and stuff. So yeah, just I think that's great.
Terrific. Are there any other thoughts or questions? We're nearing the end of our time here. Well, Courtney, this was such a treat, such a pleasure. And I'll invite everyone on our way out the door to close your eyes for a moment and reflect on a teacher or a mentor or an older person in your past who helped you see something of yourself in a new light, whether that's at university or high school or a kindergarten teacher, or maybe it's a friend of the family or a relative. And as our goodbye out the door, I'll invite you to write that person's first name in the chat so that we can recognize those people who have guided us in our pasts. Anne, Peter, another Anne, Vera, Brian, Danny, Michael, Claudia, Isabel, Brooke, another Anne. Oh, Anne was really killing it. Sue.
I don't know if it's one Anne or several Annes, but man, Anne's got it going on.
Yeah, no kidding. Gabriella, Bowdy, Christine, Emily. Emily wants to say this is not me. This is not Emily talking about herself. And then as a final goodbye, we like to do the thing that we're really not supposed to do on Zoom, which is to invite everyone to turn your cameras on and your mics, and let's have it be messy as we say thank you very much to Courtney for sharing, and thank you to everyone for what a terrific conversation today.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for
so
the
much.
opportunity. It was very fun.
Right. Fabulous.
Bye, Jessica. Bye, Jessica. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you, Courtney.
Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.
Thank you.